Do you remember when budgets used to be about booze and fags? Or when Conservative chancellors told us that we had to balance the books?
Together we had to confront a huge deficit and uncontrolled welfare spending.
Well now, instead, apparently, it's partly about whether the currency is collapsing, how much red ink we're spilling, and borrowing we're doing. Here's what happened today.
The Prime Minister has acted with great speed to announce one of the most significant interventions the British state has ever made. We are announcing the Energy Markets Financing Scheme to help households, the Energy Price Guarantee, the Energy Bill Relief Scheme.
Now, it's easy to forget this as we knew it was going to happen, but it's a huge intervention in the energy market. It'll cost £60 billion for 6 months. Then came the tax cuts, and lots of them.
The interim increase in the national insurance rate brought in for this tax year will also be cancelled.
Well, that will cost £15 billion a year by 2026. Remember, that was supposed to be for the NHS and social care. Then
we will cut the basic rate of income tax to 19 pence in April 2023.
Well, just £5 billion a year. Buying a house, you're in luck.
I can announce that we are cutting stamp duty.
£1.6 billion a year for that. Running a large business?
Next year's planned increase in corporation tax will be cancelled.
Well, that's £18 billion. And it went on. Tourists from abroad, £2 billion in VAT-free shopping. The abolition of the 45% top rate of income tax on people earning £150,000 or more a year. And more besides. That's £45 billion altogether of tax cuts. The biggest set of cuts since 1972. Paid for by borrowing on tick. Hundreds of billions of more borrowing in years to come. So, are we all in the money? Well, maybe. Depends who you are and how much you earn. For a start, this is a budget which right now, anyway, is benefiting the richest most. One study from the Resolution Foundation showed that the richest fifth of households will gain £3,000 next year in tax and benefit changes. The poorest, just £230. A millionaire would get £55,000 in income tax cuts next year. The richer you are, in other words, the more likely you are to gain. Now, Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng say that this will ultimately benefit everybody because more money will be spent in the economy, more businesses created, and so on. Over the long term, more wealth for everybody. But many economists don't agree, and neither do opposition MPs.
But every single pound in excess profits she chooses not to tax is an extra pound on borrowing that working people will be forced to pay back for decades to come.
Anyway, in the short term, it costs a lot in extra borrowing, which costs us and probably will mean less money for public services. The other thing is what is happening to the pound. Over the course of Friday, sterling started to plummet against the dollar and other currencies, having its worst day against the dollar for years. Now, this matters because it means we're all getting poorer relatively. Our pounds just don't buy us as much abroad as they did before for food or raw materials, you name it. And that means more inflation at home, which could quickly wipe out any of the benefits we get from tax cuts. In other words, there are big trade-offs. The cost of UK government borrowing also rocketed as the markets reacted badly to what Kwasi Kwarteng said. That's more expensive for us to pay off in the years to come. And if the pound doesn't stabilise next week when the markets reopen, this could get very ugly very quickly. You could theoretically have an emergency situation. The Bank of England might have to raise interest rates to try and support the pound. And yeah, that will make cost of living worse still. Trade-offs, again, everywhere. Now, Liz Truss and Kwasi Kwarteng argue that these tax cuts will get the economy roaring. Politically, economically, it is a huge gamble.
That's right. A new era.
The Newsagents. This is a Global Player original podcast.